Hey you guys, thanks for joining me for this week's Candid Conversations. Unfortunately, it is just me, by myself today. Bill is not here, but the reason why is actually due to my own scheduling. This week was crazy. It's one of those weeks where you know it's coming up, and then once you get to it, you're like, oh my goodness, we're here. All my normal scheduling is going to be messed up. So as this comes out on Saturday, we had a family wedding. My cousin was getting married on Thursday. It was like 2 hours away. That's usually when Bill and I hop on and talk. And so that kind of messed that up. And then normally we'd do it, just make it up Friday or Saturday. But Friday, I was leaving for a young adult group, like a retreat in Mount Hermon. So in the mountains, in the forest with the young adult group at my church. So I was like, I can't do Thursday. And then Friday through Sunday, I am going to be gone. So if you're watching this Saturday when it came out, then hooray, I'm in the woods, hopefully doing okay, hopefully not dying. I know my mom had mentioned like 2 days ago from when I'm talking now, like, I had a dream you died and I woke up right away. And I was like, when was it? Was it for this weekend? Was I in the woods in your dream dying? So even though I wouldn't say I'm superstitious or, I don't get weird about that stuff. It does kind of make you think whenever you're doing something outside of your normal schedule, because I don't know about you, if you have your own small business, a lot of days look very similar of like, I'm working. I've got a lot of work to do. I run around, do errands, chores, and then guess what? I work. This past week was President's Day, and at the Monday night group at my church for the young adults, the question that you put on you put your name and then they have a little question. What did you do for President's Day? And I was like, work! Exclamation point. And then some other dude, he put work and it also had the exclamation point. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's how all of us feel who had to work on a holiday. But small business owners, you probably feel me. You don't typically get those days off. So I did, though, want to jump on just to keep up this routine and the cycle of having something come out weekly for this conversation, this YouTube show. And I think the exciting thing that has happened in this past week was that I started a new YouTube show. And I know you're probably like, a new one? Man, you've got a podcast, you've got this one, you've got that one. And yeah, maybe it is a lot. But that is something I've come to grips with and I'm trying to be okay with, at least now as I'm learning how things are going. It's like, I need to grow some different platforms. I'm mainly on Instagram, and then I have the Spotify podcast. I mean, it is on Apple and Google. Google's getting rid of their podcast, so it will just be Spotify and Apple. And I really need to be focusing on Spotify because that's how I can get the quickest growth and head towards monetization. So if you are listening to the podcast, go to Spotify. Spotify is where I need you listening. And then YouTube, you kind of know the background with that if you've been following me along, but YouTube is another really good one for business owners, small business, apparently. That's what I'm still learning. But I do know social media sites usually like when you put out a lot of content. Hence, if I am putting out weekly content, hopefully that alone will start drawing in people. And I did have some more views on the very first episode that I posted of that new YouTube show, which I'll link in the show notes. But really, if you're already subscribing to this channel, which hopefully you are, then you will have seen that. It would have notified you, but it's just another playlist and it's called To Be Continued. And I don't want to talk too much about what that show is because I do all of that in that episode. So kind of pointless, right? If you're watching everything I'm doing to be like, you've already talked about this, but I will let you know that it was really exciting putting that together. I've known for a couple weeks now that I was going to do that. I wrote a theme song for that because I do a lot of songwriting. So for me, that is a lot of fun. And that's something that I've been trying to weave into the business again, because I've done that on and off of like, what do I like to do? Because if you do what you like to do, business and life in general becomes a lot more fun, a lot more bearable, which sounds really sad to say, but it's been tricky the last like 1.5 to 2 weeks of just trying to figure out yet again, as I kind of mentioned last week, am I supposed to be here? Am I still supposed to be doing this business? Should I just go and try to find a job to make money? Because I am on unemployment, government healthcare, and each week that I go through, it's using up a little more of all of that. So I'm headed towards, I'm past the halfway mark of when that kind of stuff will run out, which is just like, okay, hopefully I can be making money or like starting to make money in this business by the time that runs out. And the difference was, I think in January, I felt very confident. I was working on things that would push me out to get more people to draw in. But then here's what was going on in the background was I had an ad running and was getting a ton of people to sign up for the podcast, to be on the podcast, which is so exciting. But then I turned off the ad because I'm like, all of February is full of just like interviews. Next week, I'm going to have 7 interviews. Can you imagine that? I don't know how it's going to go because I still have a lot to edit. So that's another thing. Each time I talk to someone, which I love to do, that's like the most fun part, talking with someone. If there are no audio or recording issues, which this past week, just about everyone I talked to, something was wrong with the system or the internet. And it's hard to know if it is this program I'm using, because when I've emailed them before, they're like, no, we haven't experienced anything weird. But I think I will have to email them again and say like, okay, a lot of people are trying to use AirPods and your system is like kicking them out, or it's not working. Or if I try to do anything on my end to there, like as the admin, I can turn on the echo cancellation, which is good. But when I do that, it cuts off all their audio. So I'm like, that is a bug and I need to let them know if someone hasn't already let them know. But within February, it's just been so much of like go working in the business, which I've mentioned. And I don't think you really understand that until you are where I am. And if you have a small business, you probably know, but you're just like, say, fulfilling orders. And that's all you're doing, going. You're just talking or editing. And the editing for me, it just takes so long because I want it to be good. And it's not even that I'm being too picky, but you have to sit through the whole thing and then make micro adjustments as you go. So nothing huge or too difficult, but it does take time. So as I've been just working within this, I'm not actually pushing things outward. Besides that, I am still doing the posts. And so that has been kind of the main frustrating thing, and that like the podcast is slowly gaining traction and building as I keep having continued episodes coming out each week, and as I get more people and as they share more. But then I also feel like I need to do a better job of like informing the people on the show of how they can best share the show that they're on, which I do have a YouTube unlisted video that goes into that. But I'm like, I think probably people aren't watching that, so do I need to make a document and attach it because maybe they'll see that better. But if you didn't know, when you have guests on your show, like especially if you're a new show, a lot of how you're going to grow is by them sharing their own episode with everyone they know. And so even if you are watching this and you've been on the show, even if it was like a year ago or a couple months ago, you kind of just want to always be sharing it. Like, hey, a couple months ago I was on a podcast. Have you listened yet? Oh, here's a good story on my background. Here it is. And I've told my sister that because she was on the podcast, of just like, anytime you come up with a new update within your book series, say, hey, I talk about the initial series in this episode, listen. And so I think that is a good way for, like, say, a podcast to grow, especially when you have people on the show. It's much harder if it's just you speaking. But that's something that I also need to work on, because I was just feeling a little bit trapped of like, I'm doing a lot of good work, having great conversations, but it still feels like I'm just treading water. I'm not moving forward. But coming out with that new YouTube show, that gets me really excited. And part of the struggle I was having within that was I needed to record the theme song, which sounds great when I take a video and put it on social media, which in that show I have it linked so you can figure out and kind of listen through the different renditions as I was coming up with that. But recording it in GarageBand, it just wasn't sounding good. So and I mentioned that a little bit in the episode, but that was just really frustrating, where I'm like, I have everything coming together. I'm interviewing or, having people record episodes for that, but I wanted to have an introduction one and I want to post them on Mondays. So I was like, I need the song, and it's just like a new thing to learn. If you're starting anything new in your business, it takes time to figure out all the logistics. And I didn't want to figure that out with our first guest that we have on there to be like, hey, it's a little janky, it's a little weird, but I'm going to learn as we go. So it's still going to be that. But I learned a lot from this first episode. So any mistakes or, after I have people watch it, I can ask them like, what did you think? Was the intro too long? Was it too short? Was it, how was it? Because then I can improve as I go. And I think that is really important in your own small business of, if you do want to start something new, definitely try it if you have enough going into it, knowing that this could be a viable way to draw in more people or build up, say, your YouTube channel. And I really wasn't that into the idea until now that I'm doing it. And I'm like, maybe I'm just vain because I like to look at myself while I'm talking. And I think shows like this are very interesting. It's very similar to podcasting where, I used to share that on Mondays. I'd have a Monday episode where I just share my story. And then Wednesday we'd have the business owner. Well, with all this work I'm doing with trying to just stay afloat, I'm like, just the Wednesday episode, that is enough. And I don't want to bog people down too much with just having too much to listen to and feeling behind. Because if you've listened to podcasts, once you get behind, unless you're very determined to catch up, you're probably going to stay behind and you're going to miss good episodes and good content. So, man, I would encourage you, if you think it can be something helpful in your business, definitely jump into that. But you're going to have to sometimes just do it, not really knowing what you're going to do and just hope for the best, but also know that you're going to improve it and get better in time. And I think that's something I've learned through all the creative projects I've done, even with the song I ended up putting in as a theme song. Like, that was the best I could do at the time. But when I listen back to it now, I'm like, I think I'm going to update that in a couple weeks. But I also need some time away from it because if you didn't know, if you've done creative projects, you will know. If you spend too much time staring at something, working on something, obsessing over something, it's usually like, one, not healthy for you, but two, you start just not making sense with anything. Like you're deleting stuff that could be good, but you need a break to step away, to listen to it with fresh ears, look at it with fresh eyes, a renewed body or spirit or whatever you want to call it. Just like take time away. So I am excited for this weekend as I am on the retreat to see like, how does that go? Will I learn anything new? Will I come back alive? And on that note, I do think it is very interesting. Maybe if you have a small business you can relate to, say you do suddenly die. What happens with your business? Like, that's what I was thinking of, and not thinking too hard because I think I'll be okay. And I've been praying that God will protect me and get me home safely. But I was like, I have so many accounts and passwords, and I still like next week, those 7 people, if I don't come back, what are they going to think? Does, someone, my family know to get on and send an email like, hey, so-and-so died. He can't talk to you. Or, how to stop all these services I'm paying for. So I don't know. That's something I've thought about a little bit, not too much because I'm not expecting to die, but that's another thing when you're a small business owner. And if you're doing everything, it's an interesting thought. But I think the most exciting thing to share with you from here is that this Monday we will have our first episode, and I guess I will have posted it the day before this comes out on Friday. So letting you know, it is with Trisha and her business. So go to my Instagram, Facebook, and you will see some more information about that and what it's going to come up with as we get into that. But it was so much fun talking with her, having her be the first person to have on this show. So I would definitely suggest listen to her podcast episode that we have together before you listen to that, because it'll give great context into what we're jumping into, her own story, her own background of where she is now. And then in that episode, you're going to hear what she is working on. She even has prototypes of this new really cool physical product. So man, I am so excited for that. And I hope you are too. And we're going to end it here. But I will say the one weird thing, the behind the scenes of doing these YouTube videos is that I have to look right at this webcam right here. And I'm so used to that with my phone, like doing videos, I have it above the ring light. I'm like, hi, I'm talking into that. But doing it on the computer is just so different. It has a green light showing me that it is recording. But that's something as you watch those first few episodes, and even the first one in this playlist, Candid Conversations, and I'm pretty sure in this interview with Trisha, I'm probably like looking all over the place. And when you watch it back, you're like, dude, why don't you just look at me on the screen? I'm like, it's actually a lot harder than that. So we'll leave it with that. But I am getting better. And I'm noticing even with my podcast interviews, I'm getting better at staring at the webcam, which will look like I'm looking at them, even though if I was looking at them, I'd probably be looking right here to see their face. So it's annoying, but I'm getting better. So even that's a little thing, little steps forward. But the encouraging thing I can leave you with is if you do feel like you are stuck within your business, just working in the business, there are different seasons that you'll come to in your business. And that's what I'm trying to remind myself of so much of, like, Michael, this is just a busy season. Come March, which is just like a week and a half away, the episodes that I have, like the new recordings, taper down to like second week of March. I don't think I have anyone. So I'm looking forward to that, because then I can restore all the energy that I feel like I've lost, even some of just the willpower, the determination, that like drive that I have to be like, we're going to make this work, to now I'm like, as I said, we're just treading water, egg beater if you did water polo. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope you have a great day, great weekend ahead of you, and stay tuned and check out the show notes for how you can get further involved and plugged in with everything we are doing here at Fisher Philbrick. So I'll leave it with that. Have a great day.